interconnect a region of over 600 bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. On today's headlines: heavy rains brought by two low-pressure areas in the country may trigger flooding in major river systems in the eastern Visayas region, according to Pag-asa. President Duterte said a new task force should be formed with the Department of Health, DOST, and medical experts to focus on the new COVID-19 variant. And December 26 marks the 16th anniversary of the Indian Ocean tsunami, one of modern history's worst natural disasters. First, heavy rains brought by two low-pressure areas in the country may trigger flooding in major river systems in the eastern Visayas region. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, or Pag-asa, warned early today. In an advisory, the agency identified several rivers in 6 provinces that would likely be affected by the downpour. These water courses are in Sangputan, Palo, Solano, Daguitan, Marabon, Cadacan, Bongkirogon, Salug, Pagbanagaran, Pagsanghan, and Binahaan in Leyte, and Katarman, Bugco, Pambujan, Katubig, Palapag, Mano, and Gamay in northern Samar. Other affected areas or rivers are in Oras, Dolores, Ulot, Taft, Borongan, Suribao, Llorente, Balangiga, and Sulat in eastern Samar. Basi, Silaga, Calbiga, and Hibatan in Samar, Bisay, Himbangan, and Pandan in southern Leyte, and all river systems in Biliran. People living in low-lying areas near these river systems have been advised to stay alert for possible flash floods. Those residing near mountain slopes have been told to watch out for signs of landslides. The Department of the Interior and Local Government has identified 2,433 villages in the region as highly susceptible to flooding and urged their respective local governments to take precautionary measures. As of 3 a.m. today, the LPA was estimated at 90 kilometers east of Baler Aurora. Another LPA was also spotted 235 kilometers northeast of Puerto Princesa City, Palawan. The Weather Bureau urged the public and local disaster risk reduction and management offices to continue monitoring updates on this weather disturbance. And staying in the Philippines, the Department of Health reiterated that as early as December 22, the Philippines imposed a ban on all flights from the United Kingdom. Take a look. Pursuant to the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases, Resolution Number 90, the ban has been in effect since 12:01 a.m. of December 24, and all flights from the UK have been temporarily suspended until December 31. Following the IATF meeting, President Duterte has approved the extension of the said travel ban for 2 more weeks. On top of this, the DOH has also recommended a strict mandatory 2-week quarantine for travelers from countries which have reported the cases of the new variant. Travelers coming from countries, areas with confirmed cases of the new variant shall undergo mandatory completion of the 14-day quarantine in New Clark City, regardless of RT-PCR test results. And to date, this includes travelers from Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, South Africa, and Japan. The DOH is closely monitoring all countries with documented cases of the new COVID-19 variant. All RT-PCR positive specimens of UK travelers are now to be forwarded to the Philippine Genome Center, Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, and the University of the Philippines National Institutes of Health for Genome Sequencing as part of the country's intensified biosurveillance. The DOH further proposed, based on the recommendation of its experts, to consider travel restrictions in countries that have recorded cases of the new variant when local community transmission has been confirmed in the said countries. Finally, DOH underscores the importance of adhering to the minimum public health standards through regular hand washing, observing cough or sneeze etiquette, proper wearing of masks and face shields, physical distancing of at least 1 meter, and ensuring air circulation. The observance of MPH is key to keeping infection rates low, as the chances of mutation is lower when fewer people get infected. Moreover, it's universally effective for any type of COVID-19 mutation. Now, President Duterte says a new task force should be formed with the Department of Health, DOST Philippines, and medical experts to focus on the new COVID-19 strain. The new variant, which experts fear is more contagious, prompted more than 50 countries to impose travel restrictions on the UK. Take a look.
I'd like to ask Secretary Duque and DOST, nandito ba si... I would like them to, or government itself, the offices, should create another task force. Hindi itong atin, wala mo tayong alam dyan, medical. Ideally, it's the medical persons na nakatutok lang talaga dyan sa bagong strain, whether or not it is here or not. And whether it is as virulent as itong sabi naman ni doktora, hindi masyado, it's not as toxic as itong si COVID-19, si original yung tatay. But I think that we should not really be complacent about it. We should treat them as a deadly disease that could be entering the Philippines. Mahirap kasi ang tayo, whether or not itong na ito is as virulent or as toxic as COVID-19. So yung tanong mo, para sa akin pareho. The contact is there. The possibility of contact is there. Because you have to talk to people.
Meanwhile, the total cumulative deaths due to COVID-19 in Indonesia currently exceeds 20,000. Positive new cases continue to exceed 6,000 cases daily, and this has been since last week. Based on the data issued by the National Agency for Disaster Management on its official Twitter page today, 205 more deaths were recorded. Burnama website reports that this brought the overall deaths total to 20,085 people, while 6,848 new cases were recorded in the last 24 hours, boosting the overall positive cases to 671,788. On December 16, Indonesian President Joko Widodo announced that COVID-19 vaccine would be given free to people in the country. On December 6, Indonesia also received 1.2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine from China, while 1.8 million more doses of the vaccine would be received in early January next year. In Thailand, 5 schools have been closed for a week after a COVID-19 case linked to Samut Sakhon seafood market was confirmed in this northern province. The confirmed infection was a woman, one of 3 people who traveled together from the seafood market, a COVID-19 hotspot, to their home back in the village in Tambon Ban Kluai in Muang District last week. There were no recorded symptoms. The 3 reported for testing at the hospital. 1 woman tested positive and 1 was admitted for treatment. The other 2 in the group tested negative along with 8 people they had a close contact with, but they were all quarantined. The market and its vicinity have been on lockdown since last Saturday, with thousands living there barred from leaving. Last week, Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha blamed the outbreak on factories employing illegal migrant workers, who he accused of illegally crossing the porous Myanmar-Thailand border. The market and its vicinity have been on lockdown since last week Saturday, with thousands living there barred from leaving. Thailand's economy is highly reliant on millions of low-wage laborers from neighboring Myanmar and Cambodia, who keep the kingdom's seafood, manufacturing, construction, and service sectors humming. But the migrant workforce faces discrimination, and the outbreak has ignited anti-Myanmar sentiment among Thais, including for those who live and work among the Myanmar community in Mahachai. Proactive measures must be imposed in the country to prevent the possible entry of the new strain of coronavirus detected in the United Kingdom. This is according to National Policy Against COVID-19 Chief, Implementer and Vaccine Czar, Secretary Carlito Galvez. Take a look. In an emergency meeting presided over by President Duterte and the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases in Malacanang, Galvez recommended to the Department of Transportation to establish a stringent border control to prevent individuals infected with the new strain of COVID-19 from entering the country, particularly those from the United Kingdom. In the meeting, President Duterte approved the recommendation for an extension of the ban on flights from the UK for 2 more weeks after December 31. Mr. Galvez said the Department of Foreign Affairs should make an advisory urging overseas Filipinos in the UK to temporarily refrain from returning to the Philippines. The local government unit should also impose active monitoring in their respective cities and municipalities. Galvez also recommended a discreet investigation among overseas Filipinos from the UK. He said government should put up a special quarantine facility for those who will be infected with the new strain of coronavirus. During the palace meeting, infectious diseases experts said the new strain of this coronavirus is more infectious. However, there is still no evidence that it is more virulent. A Filipino-British family arrived at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 3 from Scotland. Now, they were taken to Clark, Pampanga for the mandatory 2 weeks quarantine. The Philippines, through President Duterte's approval of the Resolution 90 of the IATF-EID, imposed a ban on all flights from the United Kingdom from the 24th of December till the end of the month. The DOH, in coordination with the World Health Organization, is closely monitoring countries with documented cases of the new variant. As previously issued by the DOH, these include Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia. Further, the DOH continues to monitor countries reporting other new local variants such as South Africa. On top of recommending strict mandatory 14-day quarantine for incoming travelers from the identified countries, the DOH, with its panel of experts, and WHO, they're looking at possible restriction of entry of travelers from these countries. This is being revisited alongside the new risk classification for provinces, highly urbanized cities or HUCs, and independent component cities or ICCs, and the anticipated post-holiday surge. In Vietnam, Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc has urged fast contact tracing of those who came in contact with COVID-19 patient number 1440 in order to prevent the spread of the virus to communities. According to its government website, patient number 1400 is a 32-year-old man who illegally entered Vietnam on the 24th of December. He was confirmed positive for the virus on the 26th of December. The man is a native of Non Phu Commune, Nang Thi District of the Mekong Delta Province of Vinh Long. The government chief ordered ministries, agencies, and localities to raise the sense of responsibility in the fight against COVID-19, strictly implement preventive measures, tighten border controls, and strictly fine illegal entrants. He also called on all Vietnamese people to seriously comply with disease prevention measures introduced by the Ministry of Health. This is to ensure their safety as the Lunar New Year festival nears. According to the Vinlong Steering Committee for COVID-19 response, patient 1440 is now being treated at the Vinlong Hospital for tuberculosis and lung diseases. He's now in stable health conditions without such symptoms like cough and fever, the local steering committee said. The local authorities, meanwhile, have identified and tested 15 people who came in direct contact with the patient into quarantine. In addition, 122 others come in contact with the aforesaid people have also been identified and put under medical surveillance. Authorities are investigating for possible links between a woman who served her stay-home notice at Mandarin Orchard, Singapore, and 13 previously reported cases who had been quarantined at the same hotel. According to the Today.com and Malay Mail website, the woman, a 23-year-old work permit holder from Malaysia, was among 5 new cases of infections reported yesterday, all of which were imported. The Ministry of Health said the woman stayed at Mandarin Orchard before she was transferred to another facility on December 20th, when MOH commenced investigations into the 13 previously reported cases. These 13 people had served their stay-home notice at Mandarin Orchard between October 22 and the 11th of November. The woman was swabbed on December 19 and the 21st, and her test results were negative. Her swab on December 24th, at the end of her quarantine, came back positive, and she was taken to a hospital the following day. The total number of COVID-19 cases in Singapore now stands at 58,524. In all, 58,370 have fully recovered from the infection, including 8 discharged from hospitals or community care facilities yesterday.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business every Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. Open for Business, from vision to action.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
All right, let's now go over to Thailand, where the COVID-19 situation there is getting serious. Let's get an update from Faye Barte joining us live from Bangkok. Hello, Faye.
Hi, good afternoon to you, Alma, and to all our viewers. Yes, you are correct. The COVID situation here in Thailand, here in different parts of Thailand, is really getting serious. And the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, or the CCSA, on Sunday, they already admitted that there is already a current outbreak of the novel coronavirus here in the country. And they are actually informing and urging the people here, each individual, that they really need to practice the health measures that they are implementing, and they need to strictly follow the health protocols. And additional information for this, Alma, few days before of this, they actually imposed 28 areas, high-risk areas. There are 28 high-risk areas in 10 different provinces, and I cannot say all the high-risk areas, but let me just have an example here in Bangkok. One of the high-risk area is Nuwan Chan Market here in Bangkok, and on my personal observation here on the high-risk areas that they have already published or imposed, all of the high-risk areas are all markets. So we all know, Alma, that market is, it is an area. It is an area or location for the people to regularly go there. The people usually go there to buy the commodities, the basic commodities. So it is really, for us here living here in Thailand, we really need to strictly follow all the health protocols, all the health measures that we need to fight and to curb the COVID-19. And another information which is related to the COVID-19, Alma, according to Thai PBS World, the Faculty of Medicine of Chulalongkorn University is expected to begin the first phase of candidate COVID-19 vaccine trials in humans. And for the larger scale production, this could begin in late 2021. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much. I hope the situation gets better. What about the strain, the new COVID strain or variant from the UK? Have you heard, what is the latest there in Thailand? Do you have
yes, Alma, for the latest COVID strand here, we haven't got any record yet, or we haven't got any update for that yet. Yes. But if we got already the update, we're going to say it immediately also.
All right, thank you very much. We'll wait for more. We're really interested to more updates there coming out of Bangkok. Thank you very much, and you stay safe, stay alert. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Alma. Likewise, this is Faye Barte reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand, and we live in interesting times.
And let's head on over to Vietnam, where the economy is not looking so good as like other parts of the countries or of the world. Here's Charlene Navaja joining us live from Vietnam. Hello, Charlene.
Good afternoon, Alma. Good afternoon to everyone. So you're right about that. Vietnam on Sunday reported economic growth of 2.91% in 2020. So this is actually the slowest rate in more than 30 years as the country battled the coronavirus pandemic. The communist state has long been among Asia's fastest growing economies, and the 2020 figure marked a sharp fall from last year's GDP growth of 7%. But Vietnam's performance looks rosy in the context of a global recession triggered by the pandemic, and officials hailed it as huge success. The Hanoi-based General Statistics Office, or GSO, said in a statement Sunday that growth for the final quarter was 4.48%, contributing to the year-end figure of 2.91%. So in the context of complicated development of COVID-19 pandemic that badly impacts the socioeconomic situation, this was a huge success for Vietnam. So a GSO members said in the statement. So while many countries have suffered from high infection and mortality rates, Vietnam, with a population of 96 million, has recorded fewer than 1,500 coronavirus cases and only 35 deaths. And mass quarantines, extensive contact tracing, and strict controls on movement have allowed the country to keep factories largely open and get people back to work swiftly. And the officials' figure beat the International Monetary Fund's forecast of 2.4% growth for Vietnam. And the IMF has predicted a global contraction of 4.4%. The World Bank says Vietnam may enjoy more success in 2021. So looking ahead, Vietnam's prospects appear positive as the economy is projected to grow by about 6.8% in 2021 and thereafter stabilize at around 6.5%. So the bank said in a recent report. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Charlene, for your updates there in Vietnam. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you so much, Alma. Reporting live from Hanoi, Vietnam, this is Charlene Navaja. We live in interesting times.
In Cambodia, let's get the latest coronavirus situation there. Joining us live is Crystal Ann Ballesteros. Hello, Crystal.
Good afternoon, Alma.
Good afternoon.
Here are the latest COVID situation update in Cambodia. Effective yesterday, the Ministry of Health has lifted its restrictions on businesses that were ordered closed due to the November 28 community incident. The loosening of restrictions comes with a set of do's and don'ts by the ministry that was approved by Prime Minister Hun Sen. The Minister of Health, Man Bun Heng, said all restaurants and shops can now operate as normal but must strictly adhere to the guidelines given by the ministry so as to protect their patrons from being victims of the COVID-19 virus. Meanwhile, after almost a month of school closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic, private schools are now getting ready to open soon. The teachers and students who have been doing online classes during the shutdown are now scheduled to be back physically, but students fear whether they will be able to catch up with their studies. This is because some students would have fallen behind in their studies due to not being able to follow the online classes, preferred studies in the school settings, and many having no access to computers. Educational experts are of the belief that schools will face a post-crisis issue as they fear many children have been suffering the most through this pandemic. Meng Liquid, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of American Intercon School, or AIS, and AII Language Center, told Kamai Times that the pandemic itself was not the biggest problem for school, but the children's mental and physical trauma they had to go through with keeping up their studies via online and staying home for so long. The kingdom reported one new positive COVID-19 case over the weekend. The country's total cases stand at 364, with 356 recovered and no deaths. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Crystal, for your updates there in Cambodia.
Thank you, Alma. Reporting live here in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, I am Crystal Ann Ballesteros, and we always live in interesting times.
The United Nations is commemorating the first International Day of Epidemic Preparedness, underscoring the need to learn lessons from the coronavirus pandemic and urging greater investments in preparedness to confront future health emergencies. Take a look.
It's hard to believe that only a year ago, COVID-19 was still completely unknown to us. In the past 12 months, our world has been turned upside down. The impacts of the pandemic go far beyond the disease itself, with far-reaching consequences for societies and economies. But none of this should come as a surprise. Over the years, there have been many reports, reviews, and recommendations all saying the same thing. The world is not prepared for a pandemic. We must all learn the lessons the pandemic is teaching us. First, all countries must invest in preparedness capacities to prevent, detect, and mitigate emergencies of all kinds, whether they be natural occurring epidemics or deliberate events. Strong primary health care is especially important at the foundation of universal health coverage and at the eyes and ears of every health system. Second, true preparedness is not just a job of the health sector. It requires an all-of-government and all-of-society approach. And third, the pandemic has highlighted the intimate links between the health of humans, animals, and planet, which we can only address with a One Health approach. Any efforts to improve human health are doomed unless they address the critical interface between humans and animals and the existential threat of climate change that's making our Earth less habitable. History tells us that this will not be the last pandemic, and epidemics are a fact of life. But with investments in public health, supported by an all-of-government, all-of-society, One Health approach, we can ensure that our children and their children inherit a safer, more resilient, and more sustainable world. I thank you.
Malaysian police arrested 327 officers and other personnel involved in drug-related activities under Op Duri from January until October this year. Bukit Aman Narcotics Criminal Investigation Department Director Razaruddin Hussein said that based on intelligence gathered on complaints, the arrest showed a downward trend compared with 566 individuals arrested last year. According to the paper Free Malaysian Today, quote, the police department always conducts various operations, including Op Duri, previously known as Op Blue Devil, to curb the involvement of police officers and personnel in drug use. Razaruddin said the decline in arrests also conducted during the enforcement of the Conditional Movement Control Order, or CMCO, proved that the police didn't take the involvement of its officers and personnel in such activities lightly. The government expects the country to bounce back in 2021 as it safely reopens the economy and rolls out the COVID-19 vaccine next year. This positive take was shared by Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles, who on Sunday said that the planned national rollout of the vaccines, together with sustained efforts to enforce COVID-19 containment protocols as we safely reopen and reboot our economy, allow us to be cautiously optimistic about the coming year. The palace official said that the government's economic team is bullish about the prospects of the economy, with GDP growth projected in 2021 at 6.5% to 7.5%. Nograles acknowledged that due to the pandemic, the past year has been challenging, not just for the country, but for the whole world. He also pointed out, however, that with a clear plan and path forward, the government believes it will be in a good position to recover and rebound from this pandemic and regain the status as one of the most promising and dynamic economies in the region. According to Nograles, the government plans to continue enforcing protocols strictly and consistently, as these are vital in government efforts to safely reopen the economy. The Department of Statistics Malaysia said that the country's economy is expected to continue its journey towards recovery in the early months of 2021. Citing the recent Asian Development Bank economic report, the Bernama said that the chief statistician, Datuk Seri Dr. Mad Uzir Mahidin, that he said that that Malaysia's gross domestic product, or GDP, is projected to fall by 6% this year before bouncing back to 7% in 2021. He also noted that the government's policies and initiatives have supported the stabilization of the labor market condition, leading to a gradual improvement. Meanwhile, he also noted that the government had also recently permitted inter-district and interstate travel, which would boost domestic tourism activities. Meanwhile, Malaysia's exports of goods in October 2020 increased by 0.2% year-on-year to 91.1 billion Malaysian ringgit, the second highest monthly export value registered in 2020. The positive growth was supported by the increase in exports of rubber gloves, palm oil, and palm oil-based products, as well as electrical and electronic products. Additionally, the manufacturing sector continues to be the driving force of the economy, with a positive growth of 2.4% contributed by both domestic and export-oriented industries. Here in the Philippines, bank deposits and other assets of the terrorist Communist Party of the Philippines, or CPP, and its armed wing, New People's Army, have been put on freeze by the Anti-Money Laundering Council. Department of Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara said on Sunday, quoting AMLC Executive Director Mel Racela, Guevara said the AMLC approved its freeze order against the CPP-NPA and other designated terrorist groups last December 23 after the ATC formally designated the organization as a terrorist group. In a separate message to reporters, Racela clarified that the extent of the freeze order. He said that there are no accounts under the name of CPP-NPA, but the FO, or freeze order, covers the related accounts of said organization. Related accounts means all accounts opened and maintained for the benefit of the said organization, the identification of which the banks and other covered persons will play a very important role. The freeze order, he said, was issued pursuant to Section 25 of the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020 in relation to the Terrorism Financing Prevention and Suppression Act, after the ATC has designated the CPP-NPA as a terror group. He said, quote, these statutory provisions are intended to preemptively deprive designated terror organizations of resources to prevent possible terror attacks. On August 9, 2002, the U.S. government designated the CPP-NPA as foreign terrorist organization and to date continues to include the group in its list. Similar designation was made by the European Union on October 28, 2002 and reaffirmed on January 13 this year. Australia also placed the CPP-NPA in its list of terror group on October 28, 2002 and was relisted in November 2013. The United Kingdom similarly placed the group on its list on August 14, 2002 and reaffirmed it on July 7 of this year, along with New Zealand, which placed it on a similar list in October 2010 and renewed its listing in September 2019. In other news, after 7 straight weeks of price hikes, oil firms will slash prices of diesel and kerosene effective Tuesday morning. In separate advisories, Sea Oil and Shell will cut diesel prices by 5 centavos per liter. Shell will also decrease kerosene prices by 25 centavos per liter. Other oil players are expected to follow suit on Monday afternoon. Meanwhile, there will be no adjustment in gasoline prices. Last week, oil prices declined as a new strain of the coronavirus disease in the United Kingdom added worries on fuel demand recovery. As of Monday noon, West Texas Intermediate traded 0.21% lower at $48.13 per barrel, while Brent crude followed by 27 centavos or 27% to $51.15 per barrel, according to oilprice.com. Despite the coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic bringing almost everything to a standstill this year, efforts to modernize the Philippine Navy remain on track, as exemplified by the delivery and commissioning of its first ever guided missile frigate, BRP Jose Rizal, early this year. Navy Chief Vice Admiral Giovanni Carlo Bacordo told the Philippine news agency that despite the COVID-19 pandemic greatly affecting the implementation of the AFP's modernization program this year, the Philippine Navy has remained in high spirits in terms of developing its capabilities. For one, the Navy has seen the arrival of its first modern frigate, BRP Jose Rizal, in May of this year. The ship arrived in Subic Bay, Zambales last May 23 after leaving Hyundai Heavy Industries Shipyard in Ulsan, South Korea last May 18. The BRP Jose Rizal is capable of conducting anti-air warfare, anti-surface warfare, anti-submarine warfare, and electronic warfare operations, and was officially commissioned last July 10. A few weeks after its commissioning, the ship and its crew were deployed to the biennial Rim of the Pacific or RIMPAC exercises of Hawaii, which took place from August 17 to the 31st. The ship left Subic Bay on July 29 and arrived in Hawaii on August 15. Bacardo also said this deployment is considered the maiden deployment of the brand new missile frigate and called the participation of the ship and its contingent to the RIMPAC as a sterling one. Also, no defects were reported aboard BSP Jose Rizal during the two-week maneuvers. Meanwhile, Asian markets were mostly higher Monday as U.S. President Donald Trump signed a massive coronavirus relief bill, boosting positive sentiment despite ongoing concern over a new strain on COVID-19. Under pressure from all sides, Trump signed a stimulus bill worth $900 billion late Sunday in the U.S., having delayed doing so for nearly a week. Before signing the bill, the president tweeted that he had good news to come, sending markets swinging higher even before the measures were approved. Tokyo was back in positive territory on Monday as investors brought back shares buoyed by the stimulus bill, while Hong Kong and Shanghai were also higher. Seoul, Singapore, Jakarta, and Bangkok were also up less than 1%, although Manila was down 0.9%. Sydney and Wellington were closed for a holiday. The emergency U.S. package is part of a larger spending bill that, with Trump's signature, will avoid a government shutdown on Tuesday. And finally, in our news today, or December 26 marks the 16th anniversary of the Indian Ocean tsunami, one of modern history's worst natural disasters. Take a look. It was one of the deadliest disasters in history. On this day, a 100-foot-high tsunami triggered by an earthquake of magnitude 9.1, one of the largest ever recorded from under the Indian Ocean, killed more than 230,000 people in South Asia. With the epicenter near Sumatra, Indonesia, the earthquake triggered a tsunami that hit Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, and Indonesia. The Sumatra earthquake and tsunami are considered to be an eye-opener for India as it introduced the Indian coastline to tsunami and its destructible power, learning from the unprecedented natural disaster that led to such heavy damage to life and property. The Ministry of Earth founded the Indian Tsunami Early Warning System at Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, Hyderabad, in October 2007. Scientists are now able to predict and project movements in the Indian Ocean through real-time seismic monitoring with bottom pressure recorders, tide gauges, and 24/7 operational tsunami warning system to detect tsunami-genic earthquakes as to provide early advisories to the most vulnerable. Indonesia, a vast Southeast Asian archipelago, is one of the most disaster-hit nations on Earth due to its position straddling the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles. We'll see you back tomorrow. We live in interesting times.